You send a client a batch of images and they come back asking why half of them look like stock photo rejects. That's the Midjourney versus DALL-E decision biting you in real time. Midjourney is an artist studio obsessed with aesthetics. DALL-E is a literal interpreter built into ChatGPT, so which one actually fits your workflow? Test 1, output quality, and yeah, most people already have an opinion on this before they even open the app. You've probably heard Midjourney looks better, but does the actual score back that up? I'm looking at photorealism, artistic detail, and text rendering. The three things that decide whether your output looks pro or looks like AI slop. I went through community consensus and press comparisons across both tools, and Midjourney V6 scores an 8.5 on photorealism versus DALL-E's 6.5. A 2-point gap that shows up in the detail and texture of every single image. DALL-E's outputs are consistently described as softer and less intricate, though DALL-E does flip things on text rendering, scoring an 8 to Midjourney's 6, which is a real, measurable win for sign-heavy or typographic work. Midjourney takes output quality, and the cost lens makes this decisive. You're paying half the monthly price for images that consistently score 2 full points higher on the thing most clients actually notice. That puts Midjourney up 1 to 0, and the quality gap is bigger than the price gap, which is kind of the whole story of this comparison. I know that quality gap because I've literally hammered both tools on real client work and felt the difference in the delivery call. Drop a comment if you've been burned by a softer looking batch when you needed something sharp. Test 2, generation speed. And this is the objection I hear all the time. Midjourney's quality is great, but waiting a full minute every time you want to iterate is brutal when you're on a deadline. A minute per batch versus 10 seconds per image sounds like a small gap until you're running 20 rounds of revisions and your client is refreshing their inbox. DALL-E generates a single image in 10 to 30 seconds via ChatGPT, while Midjourney takes about a minute to produce a batch of 4, so per image. DALL-E is faster, though both tools vary with server load and your plan tier, which means these times aren't locked in stone. Watch the score on screen. DALL-E scores an 8 on speed, Midjourney a 6. One of the biggest problems I run into when using AI agents is turning their output into YouTube content I can actually use to market my product. That's why this video is sponsored by Subscriber, a tool that helps business owners connect their AI agents to YouTube and market their products without spending 10 hours every week creating content. You can connect Claude or ChatGPT directly to Subscriber. It then analyzes your business, website, and YouTube channel to help you create SEO-optimized video ideas, scripts, thumbnails, and even complete videos that actually match your brand. What I like most is that every week, Subscriber gives me a list of high-potential video ideas I can immediately execute, and it can even help edit videos for me, with or without my face, including videos like the one you're watching right now. It's easy to get started, and you can try Subscriber for free using the link in the description below. Now back to the video. DALL-E takes generation speed, and from a cost of time angle, that matters. Faster iteration means fewer billable hours sitting around waiting on renders. That ties it up at 1 apiece, so the next 3 tests are going to decide this thing. Test 3, pricing and credits, and the number that trips people up is the entry price. Midjourney's basic plan versus ChatGPT. Plus sounds like an obvious win for Midjourney, but DALL-E's plan bundles a full AI assistant on top of image generation. So you're not just comparing image costs, you're comparing what you actually get for the dollar, and that changes the math pretty fast. I went through the vendor pricing pages, and here's the breakdown. Midjourney's basic plan runs half the monthly cost of ChatGPT Plus and covers 200 images, scoring an 8 on entry-level cost, while DALL-E via ChatGPT Plus scores a 6 on that same metric, though DALL-E flips the API story completely, at about $0.040 per image with a public API that Midjourney simply doesn't have, which scores DALL-E a 7 to Midjourney's 5 on per image developer cost. Midjourney takes pricing on the entry-level cost lens, genuinely half the price of ChatGPT Plus if image generation is the only thing you need. That puts Midjourney ahead 2 to 1, and the cost advantage compounds when you factor in that quality score from test 1. Alright, so Midjourney is ahead, but style control and platform availability are still on the table, and one of those tests could completely change who you should actually subscribe to. Style control is especially interesting because it decides whether you can build a consistent visual brand or whether every image feels like it came from a different artist. Test 4. Style control and consistency. The day your tool produces 20 images that all look like they were made by different people, you lose the client, and that's a real thing that happens when you don't have a way to lock in a visual style across generations. I'm looking at parameter level control like style and sref versus pure natural language prompting, and the gap here is pretty wild. I went through the vendor docs and community reports, and Midjourney's Sreeve flag lets you lock a style reference across every generation. It scores a 9 on style reference support, while DALL-E, which has no equivalent parameter and relies entirely on natural language prompts, scores a 4. DALL-E's prompt handling is easier to learn, scoring a 7.5 on ease of control versus Midjourney's 6. But easier doesn't mean more consistent, and consistency is what brand work actually demands. Midjourney wins style control decisively, and from an ROI angle, this is the clearest call of the whole comparison. A 5-point score gap means DALL-E isn't in the same conversation for anyone doing repeat character or brand consistent work. That's Midjourney 3, DALL-E 1, and the overall winner is pretty much locked in at this point. Test 5, platform availability and limits. And this is the objection developers have been dropping in the comments for months. Midjourney has no API. 0. If you're trying to pipe image generation into an app or an automation, that's a hard stop, and it doesn't matter how good the images look if you can't programmatically access the tool. DALL-E sits inside ChatGPT on web, iOS, and Android, plus a full public API at 0.40 tolerance per image. I had to double check this because it seemed too stark, but Midjourney scores a 2 on API availability, DALL-E scores a 9, and that 7-point gap is the biggest delta in this entire comparison. On ease of access, DALL-E scores an 8 versus Midjourney's 5, because Discord-first onboarding is genuinely harder for non-technical users than just opening ChatGPT on your phone, and the scorecards on screen make that pretty obvious. DALL-E takes platform availability, and it's not subtle. A public API versus no API is a binary difference that no amount of image quality closes for developers. That makes the final score Midjourney 3, DALL-E 2, and the overall winner is confirmed. Midjourney wins on photorealism and artistic detail. The quality gap is still wide enough that a lot of people keep the subscription for that alone. It wins on style control with style, stylize, and sref giving you consistent character and look across every generation, which DALL-E simply can't match. And it wins on entry price, half the monthly cost of ChatGPT Plus if images are all you need. DALL-E wins on speed, 10 to 30 seconds per image versus about a minute for a Midjourney batch, which adds up fast in a heavy revision workflow. It wins on platform access, ChatGPT Web, iOS, Android, and a public API that lets developers actually build with it. And it wins on text rendering inside images, which is a specific, measurable edge for anyone doing signage, mockups, or typographic work. If you care about artistic quality and consistent style, Midjourney is the pick. It wins 3-2, and the entry plan is genuinely half the price of ChatGPT Plus. But if you need an API, faster turnaround, or you're already living in ChatGPT, DALL-E is genuinely the smarter call, and you shouldn't feel bad about it. One thing the docs don't spell out, Midjourney's Sreef style reference flag only works reliably when you feed it an image URL from within Midjourney's own CDN. External image links often silently fail or get ignored, and there's no error message telling you that happened. You can burn through a lot of credits before you realize your style reference wasn't doing anything at all. Now, if you're thinking about video generation instead of stills, I ran the same kind of breakdown on Luma versus Kling, which is better. And the winner there is way less obvious than you'd expect. So check that one out next, because the pricing structure alone is worth knowing before you commit to anything.